Okay, so we were talking about energy with respect to the King's speech. What's the latest?
Well, the latest is, having talked about energy and climate and defence last week, the boundary has been pushed yet further, and the Royal College of Physicians, believe it or not, have just released a document called the Green Physician Toolkit, which looks like it's designed for children. And certainly the intent is that patients of GPs are to be treated like children. So here we see that understanding the link between climate change and health in the UK is the first bit. So you have to understand how these links between health and climate affect themselves. And these have been broken down into 4 easy steps with little pictures. So the burning of fossil fuels increases land temperatures and air temperatures, causes extreme weather events, melts sea ice and glaciers, warms the oceans, and creates air pollution. But it's already impacting health. And when we consider Jake's forthcoming exhibition of Died Suddenly, interesting to note, therefore, there are now 3,271 excess deaths attributable to climate change somehow in the summer of 2022, and thousands of them annually. Of course, this goes back to the mental health that Mike was talking about in the King's speech: depression, anxiety and PTSD amongst the populations exposed to flooding, which of course Debbie has spoken about at great length on a regular basis. And then we see the groups that are more vulnerable. So this suggestion that there are vulnerable groups that need to be helped. And we see there, if you can't see the screen, there's a picture of a man with brown skin and wearing a face mask for reasons that are not entirely clear, but presumably to do with air pollution. But these vulnerable groups are older people, infants and children, people with pre-existing conditions, coastal and low-lying populations, people experiencing homelessness, and it's going to get worse. That's what the Health Security Agency project. They say that heat-related deaths could increase by 580%. Now, that is a figure plucked from thin air. An increase in cold-related deaths, 61% increase people at flooding risk by 2050. Anyway, you get the idea. This is very much aimed at, physicians in the first instance, but obviously for the public to be viewed, and the whole thing has been infantilized to a staggering degree. Anyway, GPs are given guidance on how to actually talk to the people, but the way this is termed is that they are described as being uniquely placed as a trusted member of the community. Now, I think after what happened in 2020 and beyond, I would say that is a waning reputation, but nonetheless, those that do still go to GPs will be helped within their communities to understand how climate change will affect their health and how to protect themselves. So it's an absolute abuse of trust that they should now be asked to talk about something that they are not trained in, and that indeed the science is certainly not settled on. Anyway, the WHO now very much involved in climate change, and they have some key points to talk to patients about. They say keep the message simple and repeat it often. Well, we've heard and seen the effects of that before in 2020 and beyond. Focus on human health, understand the local context, don't use jargon. Well, okay. Empower people to make good decisions about their health. It's looking increasingly like one such decision might not be to go to the GP in the first place. Anyway, talk about the health benefits of climate action. So this is sort of, in effect, galvanizing people into a state of political activism, which is an extraordinary expansion of the remit of a health practitioner. To tell stories to connect with people. And I think this is absolutely critical to it. They don't mean it in this way, but I would say that telling stories is absolutely what this is all about. Avoid polarizing languages. Talk about climate change during extreme weather events. So there we go. Conflate things that may otherwise not have any bearing on one another. And the biggest one, to the last point, in bold, don't debate the science. And there's quite a good reason for that. And just to recap, it's because the science effectively says that there is a belief that the approximately 3% of emissions, of overall carbon dioxide emissions over the course of a year that are created by man's activities, included, of course, farming and all the other things that are being demonized at the minute, that 3% of the overall carbon dioxide emitted is going to affect the total amount of carbon dioxide, which is 0.04% of the overall atmosphere. And it will change the climate, it will change the weather, it will heat up the world. That is the science upon which this is based. So it's very important to consider that whenever anyone says don't debate the science. I would say it's perfectly clear why not. Anyway, we'll go and have a look at Gavi now. the sort of Bill Gates spin-off vaccine business, I suppose, for want of a better word. And they say no vaccine for climate change. When this used to be a joke in 2020 that there was going to be a vaccine for climate change, they are actually now sort of talking about it. There is no vaccine for climate change and never will be. However, there are multiple readily available health interventions and prevention measures. So, as I say, we've now got this association not just between defence and climate, but also very much between medicine and climate, and there seems to be no end to it. We've talked also in the King's speech about the push towards net zero and how the whole planning space is to be reshaped around this belief that climate and energy is completely interlinked, climate and defence is interlinked, climate and medicine is interlinked. And so I just go to a small announcement made yesterday about the Sunnica Energy Farm, which has been going to take up 2,500 acres in East Anglia, and really just the amazing disregard for democracy here. We see that local communities are continuing to be given the opportunity of being involved. They were able to participate in this examination, and full consideration to all local views was given. So just to wind up, we see here from the Nuclear Energy Initiative, I can't remember what NEI exactly stands for, but they talk about the comparison between these technologies. Wind farms require up to 360 times as much land area to produce the same amount of energy, and PV solar requires up to 75 times the land area. So that's where we sit with it. And it is quite extraordinary the amount, the Labour government were not joking when they were talking about change. We'll get into the detail of all the planning that's going to be completely upended over the next few weeks.
Okay, let's quick change